Today we have Dempsey from Vials of Wrath on UUTV. Vials of Wrath plays a mixture of black metal or unblack metal as some would say and death metal at a very high level and has left its mark on the Christian underground. Dempsey talks about how he found his way into the Christian underground and how extreme music can be a way out of personal darkness.
It is the most evil thing to forget your creator. That's why you died for your sin. Betrayal.
Hi and hello and welcome to the Unvergänglich Underground Studio. My name is Raphanos and you are watching UUTV. Okay folks, before we start our show, subscribe to our channel so you can stay up to date on the Christian underground. One click that changes a lot for you and you. Below you will also find a link to order Extreme Brutal Death magazine, which looks at extreme metal from a Christian point of view. You will also find a way to support our work. And you can also read an article about Dempsey and Vials of Wrath that appeared in the latest issue of Extreme Brutal Death magazine. Before we start the interview, let's get you in the right mood. Ladies and gentlemen, dear metalheads, today's guest on UUTV is Dempsey from Vials of Wrath, an artist who influences the scene a lot with his music. Dempsey, welcome to UUTV.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
It's great to have you here today. We had to take the time difference into account because we were six hours ahead. But it worked out well and now we are here together. Let's get started. You started Vials of Wrath, the Vials of Wrath project around 2011, right?
Yes.
Tell us more about how that came about.
Sure. So I was actually in another band at the time called Bloodline Severed. And we would play what I describe as probably Christian deathcore. It was a Christian band. But I also was very passionate about more atmospheric type music, specifically black metal. I wasn't born or raised Christian. And going back before my time as a Christian, I listened to a lot of the early Norwegian bands, going back to, of course, the Pioneers, Emperor, Satyricon, a lot of that stuff. And so I wanted to do some music on my own that was kind of in that vein. And Ironically, I didn't realize there were a few other bands out there doing it, so I kind of thought I was doing something a little more original. I knew about Ancestor, Crimson Moonlight, a few of the other bands, and so I thought, well, there's not many out there doing that. I think I will try a little solo project, kind of in the vein of those early influences, so to speak. And so I had a little home project studio, and I just started dabbling and writing some music, and it was fairly well received. I did a little EP and put that out there, and it just kind of took off. Then once I left the band, Bloodline Severed, due to life changes, I moved to Tennessee. That band was located in North Carolina. I continued to write and do some more albums and things, and it just took off, and so it became a really a passionate artistic endeavor of mine to keep it going, and
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing it ever since.
Mm-hmm. Great. When you look at the person behind Vials of Wrath, you get the impression that Dempsey Mills is a very thoughtful person. Is that true? I know this is a tough question, but how would you describe yourself?
Um, well, I'd like to think I'm a thoughtful person as far as being considerate and of others, and they put a lot of time in thought about their approach to life. If you break down the word thoughtful, it means full of thought. So I also like to think I spend a lot of time pondering life, my relationship with others, my relationship with Christ. And so I try to express that in my music. It's a artistic outlet for me. And so to say that I'm thoughtful, I would say that's a pretty good way of describing myself. I've never really thought about it then that way, ironically, to say I'm thoughtful. But I like to think that I am somewhat. And I hope that shows through the music and how I treat others and
Yeah,
different aspects of my life.
mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And as that person, how did you find your way into this extreme music? You talked a little bit about it a little bit before, but what was your first contact with extreme music?
Um, well, probably showing my age a little bit here, but going back to the MTV,
Hmm.
that part of that generation with Headbangers Ball,
Okay.
uh, I listened to a lot of the more popular mainstream bands at first, but my first introduction to the heavier stuff was probably stuff like Metallica and Slayer, um, Anthrax, Testament, the early thrash bands. And then as I listened to more of those bands, my taste for the extreme music got heavier. I went from there into the downward spiral, so to speak, of looking for more aggressive, heavier music. So then I went from that
Hmm.
to Obituary,
Hmm.
Death, the band Death, a lot of the early Florida bands, Morbid Angel, bands like that.
Hmm.
And it wasn't long after that that I was exposed to the black metal scene. It kind of started popping up here and there in the U.S. And so those bands really piqued my interest. And I liked the atmosphere they created. And
Hmm.
so, like I said, I wasn't a Christian during all this time, obviously, but I just kept pouring myself and my time into discovering more bands and I liked playing guitar. I'd never considered myself a professional by any means, but um, as a hobbyist guitarist and later maybe a semi-professional guitarist, I took all of those influences and just tried to start writing my music. But yeah, it goes way back several years. I've been a fan of the
Okay.
extreme for a
Hmm.
long time.
You mentioned that there was a time before your conversion to Jesus Christ. There are some seekers out there, especially in our style of music. Um, would you like to share your conversion story with them?
Sure, sure. So, well, like I said, I wasn't a Christian when I first got into the music, but I got married pretty young, and my wife had a long history being in church. Uh, Several members of her family were ministers, and so there was a bit of a conflict as my musical tastes became darker. Music almost was my religion of sorts for a while, and anyway, somehow, and it's been so long ago, it's kind of hard to recall it exactly, but she convinced me I needed to go to church.
Mhm.
Uh, I was questioning a lot of things, just different thoughts were going through my head about meaning of life. And even though I was passionate about my music, I loved it, but I still didn't find a lot of joy in it. And so, um, to kind of cut a long story short, I went to a church service where there was a revival being held, and a pastor kind of called me out, and he just was able to almost prophesy over me. Like, he didn't know me at all, but he prayed over me, and I feel like the Lord was giving him insight into who I was as a person, and he
Hmm.
was telling me all these things that there was no way he could have known
Okay, cool.
if the spirit wasn't moving on him. So that right away just convinced me, like, this is real. And there was just a feeling of that washed over me that I can't. It's still hard to describe it, but instantly I was convicted of listening to satanic and evil music, and I gave myself over to the Lord right then and there, and just have never looked back.
Hmm.
For several years, I didn't play music or even listen to it after that because I felt there was such a conflict. But over time, God started opening doors for me to be able to use my passion for music and my abilities to try to play that kind of music that I love as a self-expression for my spiritual side. And so that's kind of how it happened.
Wow. Wow, cool. Cool. What would you say to those who have not yet found their way into the light? If you could give a message to the seekers out there.
Sure. Everybody's conversion story is different, and a lot of people are questioning their beliefs, or they may believe, but just don't know how to go about learning more. But I would say if you truly do seek the Lord, the Bible says, "Seek and you shall find; knock and the door will be open." If you seek Him out and you have the right motives, I think things will change for you. You also have to ask yourself why it is you believe what you believe. And I know a lot of people, especially in the extreme music, if they're into the satanic and the darker stuff, if you quote unquote worship the devil or believe in satanic spirits, you have to stop and say, why would I want to worship or listen to spirits that mean to do me harm and don't want to do anything but make my life miserable and to drag my spirit into darker places? And you're a miserable person sometimes. You might not realize what's missing in your life, but I think if you would just stop and be honest with yourself and genuinely pray and seek the Lord, things will change for you. I've been on both sides, and I can honestly say that you have more of a meaning and a purpose once you get to know the Lord and have a relationship with Him. So
Mhm.
just be honest with yourself and spend some genuine time seeking God, and He'll come to you when the time is right.
Great. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. For me, extreme music is relaxing most of the time, even
Mhm.
though it sounds very aggressive to those who don't know it.
Yep.
I also like other styles of music, like jazz and electronic music sometimes, but I really get it with black metal or unblack metal, as some call it.
Yes.
How do you think extreme music can be a way out of your personal darkness and lead to a more positive outlook on life or even Jesus?
Um, I think you can obviously worship the Lord through any type of music. That sounds funny for a lot of people to hear, I'm sure. But with the extreme music specifically, and it is one of the things that drew me to black metal is there's a sense of an atmosphere that's created. And even with my own music, I've had several people say that they can worship or study God's word to my music. They find it comforting or relaxing, even though, as you said, it can be very aggressive, very loud at times. But then also, I like to have the light and dark. I like to have that balance there. So to be able to listen to the Lord or to listen to the music and be drawn to the Lord through aggressive music doesn't seem far-fetched for me because I've always found some comfort with that kind of music. I just connected to it. It's not for everyone, obviously, but
Mhm.
for those of us that do enjoy that kind of music, I'm sure I'm not the only one, and there's lots of us that find some comfort in those atmospheres that are created if it's done, if the music is created with the right intentions, and people
Mm,
go into it with an open mind and don't just hear the double bass and the screeched, yelled vocals and the loud vocal styles. If they just sit and contemplate what all's going on, and if there's a right atmosphere and a spirit within the music, I can easily see people feeling drawn closer to the Lord through that.
I see. I see. Let's go back to the term unblack metal. I wrote my opinion about it in the current issue of Extreme Brutal Death magazine. You once said in an interview that you don't really like to use the term unblack metal. For what reasons?
I'm just not a fan of the idea of undoing a style of music when we're obviously using that style of music to express ourselves. Um, I'm familiar, obviously, with where the term came from. I'm black with the Horde album, the Helikus Vard. So I don't know that we were ever meant to name an entire genre of music off of something that we're not supposed to be doing. I mean, the best way for me to describe it is say I don't think Christian death metal should be called undeath metal. Christian pop music is not unpop. There's no other form of music out there that is named after what it opposes necessarily. And at the same time, to say that we are against black metal, we're saying unblack. That's like we are the opposite of black. Well, then, of course, the term white metal comes to mind. But then, I don't know about describing music in terms of colors. I don't know. I mean, we use. I myself personally don't, but I know a lot of bands use the same sound, obviously, of black metal. A lot of bands use the corpse paint, they use the spikes and the whole imagery. So I mean, if we were truly against that form of music, we wouldn't so openly embrace the musical style and some of the imagery of it. So I'm more of a fan of Christian black metal, if we have to even categorize it. And I know as people, we just that's what we have to do, describe music to people. Well, it sounds like black metal, but it has Christian lyrics. But it's still black metal music. It's just the lyrics and the perception of it is different. So that's really all it is for me. I just find it absurd is not the right word, but that we would want to take a form of music and just describe it by what it's not supposed to be, and to try to sanitize what we're doing by just putting the word "un" in front of it. I mean, it's still technically black metal at its core. It just has Christian lyrics behind it and different intentions. So that's just how I feel about it. I understand where a lot of people still want to use it, and I understand why it's necessary. But for me personally, I'm just not a fan of it for those reasons.
Makes absolutely sense. It is a good point. It's a good point, I think.
I appreciate it.
In another interview, you said that you do primitive wood furniture and a bit of pyrography. Yeah. When we can expect the first Vials of Wrath edition in this regard?
Oh, well, that's funny you said that, because actually a few years ago, I put some of those skills to use and did some wooden box sets of some albums, and actually made the boxes and did some pyrography of my logo on the front of them. So I guess in that regard, there has been some Vials of Wrath pyrography and woodworking out there. But yeah, I like to do that on the side a little bit. Maybe even, I'm hoping to maybe turn it into my professional endeavor at some point. But yeah, it's something I like to do when I'm not doing music or working as a full-time designer and doing other things.
How does the creative process for an album work for you? What happens inside you to make a new album? How can you imagine it? This process.
It's different ways, but typically, well, for my 3 full-length albums, I would have a concept almost in mind. The first one with Seeking Refuge, I wrote that during the transition of leaving the big city of Charlotte, North Carolina, and moving to the mountains of Tennessee. And so that might show in a lot of the lyrics. It talks about seeking refuge. For me, that was a matter of seeking refuge away from the hype and the busyness of the city, and moving to a more quiet pace of life, which is actually the way I grew up in rural southern West Virginia, which is a very small mountainous community as well. And so that played a big part in my lyrics. I thought, well, but as I started to write things, I wanted to write things about reconnecting with nature and how I found God and was drawn closer to the spirit when I spent time hiking or in the woods or in the mountains. So that's where Seeking Refuge came from. Days Without Names was another, not quite as much of a concept, but it was, now what do I do with this newfound relationship and with this new peace and calm that I have, or utopia. It'll be at a place where we don't really have names. We're all just one with the spirit. And so that's kind of where that came from. And then with the last album, Days Without, or Dark Winter Memories, that was actually written during a very kind of a dark point in my life when I was losing a lot of family members, a lot of close friends, and the pandemic was going on. And so a lot of folks actually passed away during that
Mm-hmm.
time,
Mm-hmm.
during the winter months. And so that's where that title came.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of those written out of just a place of darkness and just needing to express that. So anyway, and with the next album, I'm sure as I've started to work on that, I don't really, I can't say I have a concept yet, but I'm forming one. So I will see where that goes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Can we expect the new a new album from you, or
Yes, sure.
what is in the pipeline?
Yeah, yeah. The new one is actually, like I said, it's in the works. I can't give you a timetable. I'm pushing myself to maybe have something within the next year or so. I just put out the Ataraxia Part 2 EP just a few months ago. And while I was working on that, I also started working on some new material. But I'm bad about timelines. I mean, I'd like to set goals and dates that I'm going to adhere to. But like I said, sometimes I hit brick walls. Sometimes the inspiration is just not there, and I'll move on and dabble in the pyrography or making some furniture. And of course, life circumstances. I mean, I'm also, like I said, I have full-time job, family, so I squeeze it in whenever I can. But having said that, it's been quite a while since my last full length came out, so I'm really pushing myself to have something out. If not by the end of this year, the first part of next year for sure.
Okay, great, great. Is there already a label you want to release it on, or is it also open?
Well, it's kind of open now. I mean, I've got a few in mind that I would like to work with. The ones I've worked with in the past have all been great. I can't say anything negative about any of them. But at the same time, I like to keep my options open. I said, it's really too soon to say. I might shop it around to some places I've not worked with before. At the same time, I've also had some people approach me that said they would like to work with me that I've not worked with in the past. So there's a few different things to consider. I guess when it comes down to it, I really want to do what's best for the people who want the music. I want to be able to make it easily available to the people who want it.
Of course.
And that's really the biggest consideration. I'm not doing this for monetary gain. I just really, whoever can help me get the music out there to the broadest audience and make it easy for them to be able to get what they want. That's really my goal.
Great,
So we'll see where that goes.
great. I'm sure a lot of people are waiting for it and looking forward to it.
Yeah, I hope so. We'll see.
All right. We came to the end. Are there any words you want to share or ideas?
Well, I want to say thanks again. I think what you're doing is awesome. I'm looking forward to sharing this with all of my fan base. I wish you the best of luck and prayerfully hope that this does well. I mean, I'm a big fan of what's been going on so far, and I appreciate your support and willingness to have me on here and talk about Vials of Wrath.
We look forward to many releases from you. Let's not wait too long.
I hope not. We'll see how it goes.
Okay, thank you very much. God bless you.
Bless you. Have a good one.
Okay, folks, that's it for today. Let the interview with Dempsey from Vials of Wrath sink in. Remember to subscribe to our channel. If you are interested in an extreme form of Christian metal, you will find a link below where you can order Extreme Brutal Death magazine, which deals with just that. You will also find a link on how you can support our work, and you will find information on how you can find out more about Dempsey and Vials of Wrath. Stay tuned, see you soon, and may the Lord bless you.
It is the most